Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Happy Friday. We made it through another week. Congratulations. Let me be the first. If you haven't heard it yet today, I am so proud of you for carrying on. And if the only thing you did today was just show up and do the thing that you said you were going to do, congratulations. It is Friday, and we are here for another episode of Nick at Noon. And today is Freestyle Friday. So I use Friday just to really talk about whatever it is that I have on my mind for the day. And today I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes of my business. I'm going to be talking about the one thing that I do every single week. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks so much for joining. Let me know, give me a thumbs up, drop something in the chat if you can hear me and see me okay. So I'm going to be getting into the one thing that I have to do every single week. And this is really the foundation or the structure and framework that keeps my business going. So I'm really excited about this topic. And we are right at the top of the hour. I am going to go ahead and get right into it because, as I said, I want to take you behind the scenes today. Now, what I'm about to give you is not a polished version. And it's not a version where everything is running smoothly and the systems are optimized and the content is scheduled weeks in advance, although in my case it is. I'm giving you the real version. I'm giving you the version where I'm literally building a business in real time. I am figuring things out as I go, and I'm relying on a small set of weekly rituals to keep this thing moving forward, even on the weeks when everything feels hard. If you are an entrepreneur, you understand that there are always going to be weeks when things feel hard. If you agree with that, give me a thumbs up on this video. Show me some love because things are not always easy. And here's what I know after 17 years of building things online. Let me be clear. I've been making money online since 2008. It's 2026. So I started my YouTube channel in 2009. So that's a year after I started my blog. So I've been building things online for almost 20 years. And the thing that I learned is that the business that survive, they're not always the ones that have the perfect strategy. They're usually the ones that have a consistent practice. They're the ones that have a set of things that they do every single week, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what's happening in your personal life, regardless of whether the results were showing up the way that you believed they should. And that practice is what I want to talk to you about today. So, officially, welcome back to another episode of Nick at Noon. My name is Nick Scott, and I'm the founder and CEO of Her Income Edit, an online education platform designed to help professional women turn their existing skills into sustainable online businesses without quitting their nine to five, without the hustle, without the burnout, and without the overwhelm. Happy Friday, y'all. Happy Friday. Give me a thumbs up. Show me some love if you are happy that it's Friday. We made it. Before we get into it, as always, I'm going to invite you to go get your notebook and your pen. Share this video with your biz bestie. And if you have any questions or comments as we go along, I'm going to invite you to drop them in the chat. If you're watching live, and you can drop them in the comments if you're watching the replay, and I will get to them at a designated time. But right now, we're about to get into it. And Let me just set the stage here for a minute, because before I get into what exactly I do, I want to make the case for why weekly rituals matter in the first place, right? You know, Simon Sinek said, I don't know how many years ago now, but he said, start with why. And it's always important to start with why, because as I always say here at Nick at Noon, the why is really the first thing that we need to unpack and figure out. So before I talk about what I do, I want to talk about why rituals matter. And I think there's a tendency in the business building space to over invest in strategy and to under invest in practice. Now, here's the thing. Strategy is important, clearly, right? So please don't mistake me for dismissing strategy. Knowing where you're going and having a good plan for how you're going to get there, it clearly matters for your business. And let's be clear, it matters for your life. But strategy without consistent practice is just a plan that never gets executed. It's just a plan that never gets executed. And I have watched more coaching businesses fail from inconsistency than from bad strategy. And not just coaching businesses, y'all. I have seen more entrepreneurs fail, entrepreneurial ventures fail because they were inconsistent, not because they had a bad strategy. And here's what consistent practice does that strategy can't. And if you're taking notes, you might want to jot some of this down. First of all, consistent practice removes the decision fatigue from your week. Woo, baby. How many of you get tired of making decisions? Decisions in your business, decisions in your marriage, decisions concerning your kids, decisions at work, decisions in your community organizations. How many of you are tired of making decisions? Give this video a thumbs up if you would love to remove some of that decision fatigue from your week. Because having a consistent practice, it removes decision fatigue from your week. When you know exactly what you're doing on which day, regardless of how you feel, you eliminate the daily negotiation that you have with yourself about whether today is the day that you're going to do the thing. Because the thing is already scheduled, the decision is already made, and all you have to do is show up and execute. Does that sound nice? Does that sound good to you? Consistent practice also builds something that strategy can't manufacture, and that's momentum. Strategy cannot manufacture momentum the way that consistent practice does. And momentum is the single most underrated asset in a coaching business. And again, I'm going to expand it and take it out of the context of just a coaching business. I would say that momentum is the single most underrated asset in any business. And the thing about momentum is that it happens when you show up consistently over time. That's the only way momentum is built. Momentum is when your audience knows that you're going to be there. When you say that you are going to do a live show Monday through Friday on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and you're going to be there at noon Mountain Time, momentum is built when your audience knows that you're actually going to be there Monday through Friday on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook at noon Mountain Time. Momentum is built when your content starts to compound on itself. So posting something, one video on YouTube, one post on LinkedIn, one choose your platform, posting one piece of content sporadically, that doesn't create momentum. And it doesn't give the opportunity for that content to compound on itself. Momentum is when your relationships deepen with your audience and your ideal client because you keep showing up in the same places with the same messages. Momentum is when your own confidence grows because you've done the thing enough times that it starts to feel natural. And none of what I just described is produced or can it be produced by a strategy. All of the things that I just described, they are produced by a practice. And here's the thing about a practice doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to take all day long. It doesn't have to look impressive from the outside. Practice just has to be consistent. Practice? Are we talking about practice? Practice. Practice. Yes, we are talking about practice. And I'm talking about a small number of high leverage activities done every single week without fail will always outperform a large number of sporadic activities done whenever the motivation hits you. And let's be clear, what I just said is not a mindset statement, it's math. It's math. So, I said in the title and at the top of the episode that there's one thing I do every week that keeps my business moving. And I want to be honest with you about what that one thing is because it's probably not going to blow your mind and it's probably not something that you expect. The one thing that I do every week that keeps my business moving is a weekly business review. Somebody drop review down in the chat in the comments. It's not a planning session. It's not a weekly brainstorm. And it's not a weekly goal setting exercise. It is a weekly business review. It is a deliberate, structured look back at the week that just happened before I start building for the week ahead. And I know to some people that might sound extremely unsexy, unexcited, and underwhelming. And you might have been expecting something just a little bit more tactical. You might have been expecting a specific content strategy or a client acquisition system or a revenue generating activity. And let's be honest, let's be clear, and let's all agree that those things do matter. But in the context of the way that my business is being built and the way that it operates, all of those things, they flow from the business review. Because without a real look at my business, I would essentially just be flying blind. And without a weekly business review ritual within your business, you're basically making decisions about what to do next based on how you feel rather than what the data is telling you. And then let me just say this. Data is a word that has been a thorough line and a thread between at least the last 3 episodes of Nick at Noon. And here's the thing that you might not want to hear, but feelings are a terrible compass for business decisions. Because, like I always say, feelings are not facts. So, here's what a weekly business review does it forces you to look honestly at what happened last week. It forces you to look at what you did, what you didn't do, what worked, what didn't work, and most importantly, it forces you to look at what you said you were going to do, and it forces you to look at whether or not you honored the commitment and the promise that you made to yourself, basically, whether or not you did it. And most people avoid this kind of honest self accountability because it requires them to face the gap between their intentions and their actions. Intentions and actions. I intend to do the thing, but did I actually do the thing? Most people avoid this kind of honest accountability because it requires them to face the gap between their intentions and their actions. And that gap is uncomfortable. Self accountability is uncomfortable. When someone else holds you accountable, it feels uncomfortable. But it is also the most useful information you have because you can't close a gap you're not willing to look at. The first step is recognizing the thing, right? And so the weekly review is also where I make decisions about the following week. And I make these decisions not based on what feels exciting or urgent or appealing in that specific moment. I make those decisions based on what the review is telling me needs attention. I'm talking about the data here, the information that I'm getting from these practices that I'm going to get into in a moment. Practice, somebody drop practice in the comments. If I looked at the review and I haven't had a single direct sales conversation that week, it goes on to next week's list. If the review reveals to me that I publish content every day, but none of it had a clear call to action, that right there, that's a signal as something that I should correct for the following week. If the review shows me that I spent most of my week on operational tasks and very little time on revenue generating activities, that imbalance, it gets rebalanced. So the review is the rudder, and without it, the business drifts. Now, that was a boat analogy, water analogy, right? So it's literally the compass, it is the North Star. And I want to be clear about what my weekly review is not. Because if you're coming from a corporate setting or a professional setting, you're used to reviews being in the context of a performance review. And I'm not talking about a performance review where you grade yourself and you feel bad about everything you didn't do. This is not a shame spiral disguised as a business practice. This is information and data gathering. It's neutral, honest, useful information gathering that helps you make better decisions about where you need to be putting your energy next. So the goal is not to judge the week. The goal is not to judge the week. The goal is to understand what happened during that week well enough to improve on it. Let me know if you are tracking what I'm saying. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? If you are understanding what I'm saying, let me know how you feel about it. Because your weekly review, it doesn't happen in isolation. It's supported by a set of smaller daily and weekly rituals that make this weekly review possible. And I want to walk you through those because I think the architecture of a sustainable practice matters as much as the practice itself. Practice. We talking about practice? Yes, we are talking about practice. Okay, so let's get into what these rituals are. The first ritual is what I call the daily close. So at the end of every day, I take every working day. Let me be clear, because I don't do this on the weekends. I don't really work on the weekends. The first ritual is the daily close. And at the end of every working day, so that's Monday through Friday for me, I take 10 minutes to do 3 things. First thing I do is I note what I did. What did you do today, Nick? Let's take note of it. The second thing I do is I note what I didn't do. And then the third thing I take note of is what needs to carry forward to tomorrow. Here's the thing about me. If you know me personally, you probably know this. I am extremely deadline oriented. And if it does not have a deadline attached to it, then I just make up a time and it just doesn't get done. So one way that I keep myself accountable in my business is I make lists, right? To-do lists. And this is exactly what this is. Write your to-do list, look at it at the end of the day for 10 minutes. Did you do these things? The things you did, yay, great. The things you didn't do, okay, now those are the things that we carry forward in tomorrow. But here's the thing about to-do lists that can become very overwhelming, particularly in the context of building your business. That carry forward until you have a to-do list that has 200 things that you know you can't realistically get through in one day. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being realistic and honest with yourself. So we have to be honest with ourselves in these businesses, right? Be honest with yourselves about what is realistic for you to get done within the day. So then at the end of the day, the goal is not to make the list so short that it's like every single day, oh my gosh, I did everything, right? You want to stretch yourself a little bit, but you don't want to have a list that's so long and so unrealistic that you're never going to get through it. So 10 minutes, that's all I take at the end of the day. And this is not a journaling exercise or a lengthy reflection. It is just a quick, honest accounting and accountability of the day before I close it out. And the reason this matters is that the weekly review is only as good as the data you bring to it. There's that word again, data. Somebody drop data in the comments. So if you're trying to review your whole week from memory on a Friday afternoon, I guarantee you're going to miss some things. You're going to misremember some things. You're going to smooth over the parts that were hard and inflate the parts that felt good. The daily close, it gives you accurate data for that day. So when Friday comes, you're reviewing what happened rather than trying to remember and figure out and think what happened and make up parts that make you feel good. So that's the first ritual, is the daily practice, the daily close. The second ritual is what I call the content commitment. So every Monday, I decide what I'm going to create that week. And it's not a loose intention, it is a specific commitment. And this episode, the one that you're listening to or watching right now, this episode on this day covering this topic with this call to action, this was pre-planned. I didn't just wake up this morning and decide that I was going to give you this behind the scenes look in my business. And the reason this matters is that content decisions made in the moment are almost always worse than content decisions that are made in advance. Please take it from me as someone who has been creating content on the internet since 2008. And the only reason that I have been able to consistently show up for the last, what is that, 2008, 2026, is that 18? So for the last 18 years, the only reason that I've been able to show up consistently for my audience is because I make those decisions in advance. Even when I was a full-time YouTuber between the years of 2009 through 2000, I think I quit about 16 for real. That content was planned in advance. The content you see on my Instagram, the content you see on my LinkedIn, the content you see on my YouTube channel, the content you see on my Facebook page. I didn't just wake up that day and decide that I was going to post it. I made those decisions in advance. And when you're deciding what to talk about 5 minutes before you go live, imagine if I decided what I was going to talk about at 11:55 Mountain Time every day. What would these conversations look like? How would you receive those types of conversations? So when you decide what you're going to talk about 5 minutes before you go live, and that's not to say that there'll be situations where that happens, but that shouldn't be the consistent thing that happens. When that happens, though, you're really working from whatever is top of mind. And It might be great. Let's be clear. If you do these things enough times, it might be great. And I do know some content creators and some brand strategists. When I say they can flow off the dome with no talking points, no script, no teleprompter, baby, and they can deliver a great conversation, they can. But most of us can't do that. Most of us can't do that. Most of the great orators of our time, they all have been prepared before you've seen them speak or perform. So it might be great, but the other thing that might happen if you decide to decide what you're talking about 5 minutes before you go live, it could be completely disconnected from the strategy that you've been building toward. The content commitment made on Monday means that by the time I sit down for each one of these episodes, the thinking is already done. Like I already know what the topic is. I already know what the call to action is. I already know how this is going to ladder up to my strategy. The angle is clear. The call to action is set. And all I have to do, like I said at the beginning when I talked about decision fatigue, all I have to do is show up and deliver at the designated time. And that is a very different experience for me and for you than figuring it all out in real time. So that is the second ritual that I do. And that is the content commitment. And just to recap, the first ritual that I do is it was what was the first ritual, y'all? The first ritual was around, oh my gosh, my mind. Oh my goodness. My mind is gone. Oh, the daily close. Thank you. The daily close. Woo, let me tell you something. Um, I am at an age where my brain will just have something in it and 1 second and the next second is gone. So yes, first ritual is the daily close. The second ritual is the content commitment. Now let's talk about what this third ritual is going to be. The third ritual is because, like I said, these things build up into this weekly business review that I'm talking about. So the third ritual is what I call the content practice. And every week, I make a deliberate effort to reach out to at least 3 people in my network. At least 3 people in my network. And I'm reaching out not with a pitch and not with an offer, but I'm reaching out with genuine curiosity about what they're working on and how things are going. And this might be the ritual that gets skipped most often in a busy week. And if you're like me, every one of your weeks are busy. But it's also the one with the highest long term return because business, especially in the early stages, is built on relationships. Like I'm not building a transactional business here. Many of my past clients, I still keep in touch with to this day. Like I have their phone numbers in my phone and we text and we converse and we communicate and we help each other out. And we have like this little micro CEO support community. So I don't treat my business like a transaction. And hopefully you experience that if you opt into one of my freebies or if you choose to purchase one of my digital products or enroll in one of my courses or join my programs. This is an experience. It is not a transaction. And I'm very serious about the experience because I truly believe in the relationship. I truly believe that your success is my success. And like I said yesterday, I want to see you win. I really want to see you win. I will always be your biggest cheerleader. And relationships, they require consistent, genuine contact. Every relationship, not just within the context of your business. Think about a romantic relationship. Think about a friendship. Think about a sibling relationship. They require consistent, genuine contact not just broadcasting content into the atmosphere, into the algorithm, and you don't know who sees it and if they see it, but relationships require direct human one-on-one contact with real people, and the connection practice keeps that muscle active. It keeps me in relationship with people in my network who might one day become clients. They might one day refer clients. They might collaborate with me or simply support what I'm building by sharing it with others. And there is so much power in having what you're sharing and what you're building shared with others. And I said this a moment ago, but I really want to emphasize this, that this is done without being transactional, because the conversations that I'm having with these three people that I intentionally reach out to every week, it's not about business. It's about the people, and people remember who showed up for them before they needed something. I know I do. I remember who is there and who is not. When tragedy strikes, when celebrations occur, I remember who is there and who doesn't. And I would guess so do you. So it's strategy, it's intentional, but it's also genuine, because I'm not doing it because I expect anything in return. And I'm not reaching out to just random people in my network that I, right? It's very strategic and it's very intentional. So the fourth ritual that I do is the revenue check. So every week I look at the numbers, and I don't obsessively or look at them obsessively or in a way that sends me that sends me into anxiety if they're not where I want them to be. They're never where I want them to be. Spoiler alert. But honestly, I really truly look at, what did I earn this week? What activity produced that income, and what income generating activity did I do that week? What income generating activity did I skip? Those are the questions, that tell me more about the health of my business than any of those vanity metrics ever could. What are vanity metrics? Follower counts, views, impressions, engagement rates. And here's the thing, I'm not saying those things don't matter, because they do, because those things really can ladder up to a bigger content strategy if you have bigger goals and aspirations when it comes to your content and content marketing. So I'm not saying that those things don't matter. What I am saying is they don't pay the bills. Follower counts, views, impressions, engagement, all those, it doesn't pay, it doesn't pay my bills. Revenue is what pays the bills. And the only way to grow revenue is to pay attention to it consistently enough to understand what's producing and what isn't. And when you understand that, you can make pivots that are based off of data and not how you feel. So the revenue check is where, here's that word again, the data from the week meets the financial reality of my business. And I'm just going to be very, very, very transparent. It is very uncomfortable sometimes. And it is especially uncomfortable in the early stages when the revenue is small or inconsistent. And I want to say that again, because we are in a culture where, well, we've been in this culture for a long time, actually, where business owners feel the need to pull back to the veil on everything. And that includes their revenue, their income, their lifestyle, all the things, right? And you're inspired, you can be inspired by that. And that could be the thing that inspires you to start your own online business. And you get into it, and you're a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months into it, but you're not seeing the same type of consistent or large revenue numbers that you're seeing these other people show. And it's so important when you're first starting your business, to understand that in the early stages, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel uncomfortable because the revenue is small and it is inconsistent. As a matter of fact, I had a text just today, and I'm going to read it to y'all right here, from a friend that I reached out to. Um, and she asked me how my business was going. And as you know, I am in the rebirthing stage of my coaching business. And like I said, I've talked about this all through Nick at Noon. You can go back and watch the previous episodes. But she asked me, how's the business going? I didn't even reach out to her to talk about business. I actually reached out to her to share a photo that we took of her a few years ago, together a few years ago. But she says, well, how's the business going? And I said, I'm moving along and I'm doing my best to regain my footing and be patient in the gap of rebirthing my business and really getting on and onboarding those first clients. So I'm really being patient with myself because it is uncomfortable. It is truly uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable in the early stages. And I'm just going to be honest, it's uncomfortable in the middle stages and it's uncomfortable in the mature stages. But it is also, so this right here, this revenue check, it is also the most honest conversation you can have with yourself about where the business is and what it needs. So you can't figure that out if you don't take the time to actually look at it. And that honesty that you have with yourself about your business, about your revenue, about the practices that you do, that's what makes the decisions that follow easier and better. Let me know if you're tracking with what I'm saying. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? So I want to share what this looked like for me this week. Now, I just shared a text message that I received from a friend that I literally reached out to last night. And remember, I said one of the practices that I implement in my business is to reach out to 3 people in my network. And that was evidence that I did. And what was her response? I didn't even talk about business, but she asked, how is the business going? Right. So I want to share what this looked like for me this week, just a little bit more, just on a deeper level, because I think the theory is useful, but the reality is more instructive. So this week, more or less, started the first week of April, right? Second quarter. Here we go. Let's go. Let's get it. And this week, officially, right now, today, we are 4 weeks straight. What do they call it? A streak? We have a 4-week streak of Nick at Noon where I am going live every day, Monday through Friday at noon Mountain Time on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So I made the decision to push the first Ignite cohort to later this summer so I could give it the attention that it deserves. So that's one thing, one decision that I had to make this week. The second thing is I'm in the middle of building toward a live workshop that I'm going to present and run in May. And I haven't really fully announced it yet, but there's a lot that's moving at once. You could imagine, the decision to push the cohort to later this summer, how that could affect me, right? And also at the same time, thinking forward, like, all right, let's get this live workshop going on. So there's a lot of moving parts. So Monday's content commitment was locked in over the weekend. Let's be clear, it was locked in on Friday because, like I said earlier in this episode, I really don't work on the weekend unless I have to. And so last Friday, I knew what each episode this week was going to cover. I knew what the call to action was going to be, and I knew what the through line was going to be across the week. So, the fact that you have heard, if you have been with me live or if you're watching the replay, the fact that you have heard the word data repeatedly through each episode, I would have to say that was strategy, that was intentional. That's a through line across the week. And that decision, that through line, that content commitment, that was made before Monday morning. So that meant on Monday, when I sat down on Monday at my desk, I wasn't starting from zero. I was executing a plan that already existed. So the daily close happened every day this week, and I want to be honest about what that revealed. So if you were with me on Wednesday, that episode ran long in the prep phase because I hadn't done enough thinking about what I wanted that episode to look like in advance. So on Wednesday here at Nick at Noon, we talk about money making Wednesday, right? So that episode ran long, or the prep ran long for that episode because I didn't really think about it in advance. And the daily close that I did that Wednesday, it flagged that. It's like, well, girl, why did the prep take so long this day? Well, it's because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So yesterday, I blocked an extra 30 minutes before the show to think through the episode more deliberately before going live. And Thursday around here are hot takes. And I'll have to be honest, I feel like the show is usually good, but I feel like yesterday's show was a little better because I spent that additional time to prepare for it. So the connection practice happened on Tuesday and Thursday this week. So I just literally showed you in real time. I sent messages yesterday, which was Thursday, and on Tuesday. So not 3 days, 2. And I'm going to note that in this review as something to be more deliberate about next week, right? We have to make sure that we're consistently doing the things that we say that we're going to do. The revenue check happened on Wednesday morning. I looked at what had come in from product sales, what conversations were active, and whether the workshop wait list is growing. And there's one conversation that's been in a pending state for 2 weeks, and I need to follow up on that. I need to follow up on that conversation. And that follow-up is going to happen today. And the weekly review is literally happening right now. And this episode is part of it. Because talking publicly about what happened this week is one of the ways I stay accountable to the practice that I'm describing, to the practice that I recommend you should implement in your business. The practice is not perfect. It never is. But it's consistent enough to keep my business moving, even in a week that has a lot of competing demands of my time and my energy. And that consistency is what makes the difference between a business that grows and one that stalls or just falls apart altogether. Somebody drop practice in the chat. So I want to talk about what can get in the way of consistent business practice, because I think naming the obstacles is part of what makes them easier to navigate. So the first thing that can get in the way is the belief that you need to feel motivated to do the thing. Woo-wee. I can do a whole episode on the feeling of motivation, and I need to feel motivated and I need to feel inspired before I do the thing. But I'm not, I'm not gonna go there today, because that is one of the most pervasive myths in productivity culture. The idea that you do the work when you're inspired and rest when you're not inspired. What? Who said that? Because here's what I know about motivation: it's a lagging indicator, not a leading one. Motivation, it follows action. If you are taking notes, I want you to write that down because this is important. Motivation follows action, it doesn't come before it. You don't wait until you feel motivated to build your business. You build your business, and the momentum you generate produces the motivation that makes the building feel good. Motivation follows action, it does not come before it. Let's be clear. I'll use myself as an example. It has been a long week. It's been a long month for me, right? So Friday comes along, and I am one of those people that love Friday because I don't really work on the weekends. So Friday comes around and I am ready. I'm excited. I wake up and I post my little happy Friday post on my personal Facebook, and I sit down to start preparing for this episode. And listen, your girl is tired. She did not get good rest last night. She did not feel motivated to do this episode. But guess what? Motivation does. It comes after the action. It doesn't come before it. Because right now, in this moment, I am fired up. I am ready to go. I am like, let's do this. So you build your business, and the momentum you generate produces the motivation that makes the building feel good. The rituals exist precisely for the days when you don't feel like doing them. That's why we do rituals, because feeling like it, you feeling like it, that's optional, but doing it is not. Because the genius of this thing, the genius of building online businesses, it's in the doing. It is not in the feeling. So the second thing that gets in the way is perfectionism about the practice itself. And I'm talking about the belief that you can't, if you can't do it perfectly, that you shouldn't do it at all. If you can't do this, the rituals and this weekly business review perfectly, then you shouldn't do it at all. Or the belief that if you miss one of your weekly reviews, then the whole system is broken and you might as well just throw the whole thing in the trash and start over. And that's not how practices work. That's not how practices work. A practice isn't ruined by a missed week. It's sustained by a recommitment to the next week. The goal for me, and I would encourage the goal for you, is not to never miss. The goal is to miss less often than you show up. So you have to show up more often than you miss. And then over time, that showing up becomes the default. Like it becomes the practice. It becomes second nature to you. And the third thing that gets in the way is the feeling that the practice is too simple to be effective, that a weekly review and a daily close and a connection practice and a revenue check can't be possibly what's holding a real business together. And that there must be something more sophisticated that's required. And I'm here to tell you that there isn't. Small practices executed consistently always outperform complex systems executed sporadically. The businesses that look sophisticated from the outside are almost always built on surprisingly simple foundations. And that's because the sophistication comes from the compounding effect of consistent, simple actions over time. Sophistication doesn't come from complexity, it comes from consistency. So, before I go, I want to mention something I'm building for May. I talked about it a few minutes ago, but I want to talk about it just a little bit more here. Because one of the things I hear most from women who are building coaching businesses is that they know they need to take action, but they're not always sure what action to take. So they're just spinning, they're just circling. And it's not because for lack of effort, but for lack of a clear starting point. And so what's coming in May is designed to solve exactly that. I mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to say it again. For those of you that might have just tuned in, I am hosting a live workshop where we build the most foundational piece of your coaching business together in real time. We're going to build the piece that once it's clear, it will make every other decision in your online coaching business easier. And I'm not sharing all the details yet because I'm still working them out in the background, but the wait list is open. And the women who get on the wait list are going to be the first to know when everything I'm ready to share. They'll be the first to know when I share it. The link is in the description if you're watching on YouTube, or you can go to my website at herincomeedit.com/workshop. And if you are interested in getting clear on this very first step in your business and you want to work with me live in a group setting, I encourage you to get on that wait list. Again, the website is herincomeedit.com/workshop, or you can click the link in the description if you're watching on YouTube. And the one thing that keeps my business moving every week is not a complicated system. I hope that you were able to gather that through this conversation. It's not a sophisticated tech stack. And it's not a perfectly optimized content strategy either. The thing that keeps my business moving every week is a consistent practice of looking honestly at what happened. Honestly, being honest with myself, being real with myself. It's a consistent practice of making deliberate decisions about what comes next, based on information, based on the data, not based on how I feel. It is a consistent practice of showing up to execute those decisions, regardless of how I feel, regardless of if I feel motivated or inspired. And the thing about all of this is that it's available to you too. You can also incorporate a consistent practice in your business. And you can do that starting this week. You don't have to wait until next quarter or after you have more clients or when you have more time or you have more clarity. You can literally start this week. You can literally start this week. So, happy Friday. I want you to come back on Monday. I will be here at noon Mountain Time, and I have something to say about why playing it safe is one of the riskiest decisions you can make for your business. Monday is mindset, and we're going to be getting into it. We're going to be talking about why playing it safe is one of the riskiest decisions you can make for your business. So, if you're not already, subscribe here on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so you do not miss a beat, so you do not miss the notification when I go live on Monday. The workshop waitlist link is in the description, or you can go to my website at herincomeedit.com/workshop. And I want to thank you so much for joining. I want to thank you for showing up. I want to thank you for watching live, joining me live. I want to thank you for watching the replay. I want to thank you for your feedback. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Mila's Musings. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your feedback. And yeah, y'all know where to find me if you need me. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. I hope that you will come back and join me on Monday. And have a wonderful weekend. And until next time, bye, y'all.